help. See you around. I must get closer. out of range. far away. I am out of range.
steals anywhere! Glad I could help!
Me got the good stuff, man. Be good.
I cannot use that.
guard. I don't know, boss. Sounds risky.
That's why we're not bringing the crew. Not until we know more.
What do you ask of the Xander lad?
Tips.
Thank you very much.
How's the king's tips?
Where's
And
the
they
money?
decide to take matters into their own.
Need money because I'm breathing.
Oh,
Yeah,
he's not
I think
done
that's fair.
either.
That's fair.
Hopefully
That's
he keeps
fair,
digging
yeah.
in deeper.
It makes it look like I'm an ass,
Yeah,
right?
you are.
Because you're stupid. If you don't understand that sitting in this office and sweating profusely, being incredibly
Profusely?
unhealthy and uncomfortable to make a few
Unhealthy,
bucks
okay.
is a bad thing, you're an asshole. And I mean that. Like, I mean, how dumb can you be?
Hey, me again.
I might as well just fucking, do completely crazy
You know what? I wanna
shit
give
on
this
the
guy
street,
my money.
constantly putting myself in harm's way.
He's
What's
chill.
dumb?
Putting myself in
Yeah.
harm's
You don't
way.
understand the difference between,
I'm gonna feel a
purchase
little
hat.
sweaty.
That's a
What are you laughing at?
What's funny?
It doesn't,
He always laughs at his
What?
it
scams.
doesn't hurt your body.
Yeah.
It's meant to be
He
designed
has though,
to protect your neck or
consistently.
whatever. A nice hat. right? Versus a fucking
Dude.
costume you're only supposed to... Well, you can tell that he got this from another streamer or something because it's clicking in and out, and my content doesn't do that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
This is some other
Well,
streamer.
okay.
By the way, thank you so much.
Sure.
Felipe Gama is awesome. Well, you know, for a few minutes, momentarily for a party or something. You don't get the difference? You're an idiot.
As if to ease from the serious drama starting 2021, attention was again shifted to moments Phil made a fool of himself.
Damn, I wish they went into this. There it is.
Yeah,
So there it is. That is the ka-ching. They didn't get into it, unfortunately. He
That's
didn't
enough.
talk
It's
about
in there.
it, but it is
It's
in
in
there,
there.
though.
It's
Just a
a
reminder,
shout-out.
all the tourists out there watching, this was his wife's birthday dinner. Just to make that very clear. Someone that was making over $100,000 a year, this was his wife's
went to-
birthday dinner.
Burger King.
We also went to the sushi restaurant, but it turned out there was no sushi that day because the sushi chef wasn't working.
Yes.
Okay.
Right, that's right.
Who
We went window shopping?
Who needs reservations,
Yes.
right? For something that happens so randomly like a birthday.
Yeah, it's not like you're not like you're gonna know
It's
what
not
day
like
that
you-
lands on every day. That might not even be on your day off this year, right?
You can't
Yes.
plan ahead.
Okay, let's go.
Are you kidding?
And of
chicken
course,
sandwich.
moments like these on stream.
Now, there was a gun.
And
Ooh,
of
chicken
course,
sandwich.
moments like these on stream.
Oh my god.
Now,
He's
there's a
like
gun.
remembering it fondly.
Where did it go? Oh, no chicken sandwich? He
This
skipped
is
it.
weird.
Yeah.
He skipped it. What the fuck?
Yeah.
He had a gun. I wanted him to get
Why?
it.
Why are you proud of that?
Oh, it's good.
Yeah, I didn't get it. For some reason. I don't know how to get a gun off of a guy.
Off of a guy.
Yeah, but you see, I looked away. Now he had a big ass gun I wanted.
Nope.
I guess not. And
You don't
uh,
pay attention when you
shows
play
up
games. It's very
just what you
easy.
kidding me?
Or-
That's classic. That's classic DSP.
classic.
Something's right in front of my
What?
face, under my nose, and I miss it.
So you
That
don't have to
happens all the
pause
time.
that.
I'm
Isn't-
kidding. I mean, I think I'm
it's
probably
not
getting a little bit
charming.
better at it now that I've got better.
Andrew, can you say
No.
cheeseburger one
No.
time?
No, that happens
I
in every
didn't-
fucking
it
video
didn't
game, and
tell
that's just
me
common, a DSP
that I was
mannerism.
the
I miss
HVT.
shit, right? Absolutely, that's like that's a running thing. That's you know, sure. You got me there. I'm an idiot. I missed.
There's not, again, Philip, it's not about
What?
getting you or gotcha. It's showing things that you've done. So he really thinks like it's a gotcha situation, doesn't he,
Yeah.
a documentary?
Yeah.
You got me. You got me.
Every
got
point-
me, June.
Every
You
point
got
is
me.
something that he should have the opportunity to refute, and like when he can't think of something fast enough, he just is just like, oh yeah, well that one got me.
Oh, yeah.
You got
Huh.
me.
Huh.
Andrew, can you say cheeseburger? Ryan really wants you to do it.
Cheeseburger.
There you go.
this shit all the
There you
time
go.
in video games.
Beast churger.
It is important to remember that it was not just detractors, fans, or uninteractive viewers from both sides that were paying attention to Phil.
Because we've shown you that these new items and abilities
This I didn't even know about until someone told me about it. I had no
Irrelevant.
clue this even existed.
Thanks.
the
Good story, bro.
different
Okay.
Thanks.
in the different levels, the flow is motivating. And
Thanks, bro.
most importantly, we can actually use that motivation to prioritize exploration. Here's a quick example. I want you to watch what the player does here as he boats around.
Yeah, this
What's
player's
hilarious is they blur my face out. Oh, you can't see it because I'm blocking it. Hold on, I'm gonna remove my camera for a
yeah,
second.
because
so
they
you
didn't
guys
want
can see
the,
it.
Please
they
do.
didn't want the dude that jerked off to become the story.
Right.
This is
Oh,
them
that's the
clipping
guy
me
that
playing
yanked
God of
it.
War
Oh.
2018.
Is that the guy that
And they
jerked
Yeah, we
blur
off?
know.
my camera out. Why?
Oh, he's
Why
the guy
blur
that
my
came all
camera
over
out?
his camera. Oh.
It would be so it would be less embarrassing for them and
Yep.
you.
Taste of Vanya magic
Mostly for them.
forms of experimentation.
We're back.
New levels of depravity.
The top 3 comments on this video read, quote, "The unstoppable force of nature that is DSP single-handedly making the gaming industry worse by simply playing games."
I don't even get
What?
it. What is that?
I don't even get it.
He doesn't get it. Of course he doesn't get it. He doesn't understand comedy.
This
in
one
any
doesn't get me,
form.
June. I don't get this one, and this one that does not gotten me, June. Okay.
I've not been got.
June, you might want to edit this one out, bro. There's not really get landing, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah,
June?
put this one in the
Making the
follow-up. This
game-
one's not landing for my
Yeah.
audience.
The industry
No,
worse
they
by
don't get
simply
it.
playing games.
I don't even get it. What does that mean? I don't understand what the reference was. That wasn't the full context.
What does that
Right?
mean?
What was that?
What more context
Was
do you
there showing
need?
Something about game development, and they used my video as an example of how the game development worked, and it helped the player. and that's a bad
Brother,
thing?
please,
I'm
brother.
lost.
Yes. Oh my
Oh,
god.
that much
No,
is
I
clear.
don't get it.
Yep.
If someone can ever explain that to me or break that down,
Okay.
Oh, okay, I can help you, Phil.
You're a shitty gamer.
They're telling the audience that they're presenting to about how they can leave stupid little hints in
Yeah.
every single stage that will
Stupid
basically
people.
direct you around like a fucking beast of burden through their video game so that they don't have to tip. Or sorry, so they don't have to think.
Yes.
And they're tailoring that for gamers who don't think, and they're using you as the model of the gamer that doesn't think.
Yes.
Do you get it yet?
And
I
don't
get
worry,
it.
we have two. Double L said, just give him a tip, Snood, then you'll get the
I
message.
just did. That was the tip. That one's free.
Just want to
Yeah.
point out, there's 2 more comments that June is going to read here. Let's see if Philip gets it with these 2 additional comments saying the same
Okay.
thing in different ways. Here we go.
Okay, let's see.
How that's a bad thing? I mean, is that not a good thing? That
No.
that they were
No.
showing. Here, we put something in the game to help the gamer along their way,
Yeah,
so
but
not
you're
to get
so
lost. It motivates them to do
stupid.
things.
Yeah.
And here's how it was implemented. Here's a gamer actually doing it. How is that a bad
I think
thing?
I might explode.
Keep listening, Philip.
The
Unpause.
unstoppable force of nature that is DSP single-handedly making games industry worse. Why? By them putting in things that make games more fun? I mean, what are you talking about?
Simpler, brother. Simpler.
Easier, brain
It's
dead.
not more fun. It's just more stupid.
No thought required.
They
Yeah.
are dumbing games down, and you are the target
Yes.
audience.
There you go.
Got him. Got him.
Hey, you guys in the audience got me with that one. Okay, I'll take that one. Okay.
It showed the game being
I got it. I'm on it. Yeah.
dumbed
Nice.
down.
Yeah, there you go. Fuck yeah.
I don't understand
What is
that.
dumbed down? I don't understand dumbed down, huh?
Mean.
What does
Can
that
you
mean?
dumb
I was
that down
riding
for
the
me? I
boat.
don't get it.
There was an indicator on the shore that you needed to go
Holy
there to do
fuck.
something. I saw
Yes.
the indicator, as intended, went to the shore and did it. How is that a slight against me, a slight against the game? It doesn't even make sense.
You can tell that this wounded him, didn't it?
He's very unsure what to think about this part. Very unsure.
This hit him where it hurts.
Radiant purple, which looks more like a pink to me. And each of these are plastic devices, even though this one in particular has a more metallic plastic kind of look to it. Now, I don't have all 4 of the colors, but I just so happen to have 3 of them, so let's take a look at them really quickly. To start, we have the black one, and this one has a little bit more of a sheen to it compared to the others, and I think this is kind of that metallic look. And I think if you're looking for something pretty nondescript, then I think this is a pretty good fit right here. I do like the black on black aesthetics. Next, we have the Ray model. This has been the primary one that I've been testing over the past few weeks. I really like the Famicom style look to it, and yeah, just feels very retro to me. It certainly has a bit of a toy look to it, but it's really grown on me. Next, we have what they're calling the beige white, and this one is kind of hard to pick up here on this camera, but there is a big difference between the tone of the white and the buttons and all of the controls, and then the actual case itself. It's almost like the case itself has a yellowed or sort of aged look to it, and it is quite a weird contrast compared to the white buttons. And there are some things to like about it, like the rainbow colors on the face buttons, but I don't know, I'm not a really big fan of this off-white and white mixture. If anything, it makes me wish that they had used a black color instead, because it would have given it a more of like panda style look to it, and I think I would have really liked that. Anyway, those are the 3 colors I have, and I definitely prefer the gray and red one over the others. I think it has a more retro look to it, and given the fact that I think this device is well suited for retro gaming, it just seems to be a better fit. Now, in addition to these review units, Ambernick also sent over one of their hard shell cases, and this is it right here. And to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of these. I think they just are a little bit generic and cheap feeling altogether. They definitely get the job done, and they are form-fitted for the device, and so if you're just looking for an easy solution to carry the device around, this might work out well. Personally, I've been using this little pouch from a company called Waterfield, and this is actually made for an analog pocket, but the RG Cube fits pretty well. It's a little bit thicker, and so as a result, it doesn't actually close at the top, but it does feel well protected, and so this is what I've been using when traveling around. Next, we'll talk a little bit about the specs. So we have a 3.95 inch, I'm just going to call it a 4-inch screen, and it is a 720 by 720 resolution and a 1:1 square aspect ratio. The processor in here is exactly the same as their previous high-end Android model, the Ambernick RG556. And as I'll demonstrate throughout the video, this can play up to PS2 and GameCube fairly well. Not every single game is going to play at full speed, but the vast majority will. In terms of other specs, we've got 8GB of LPDDR4X RAM, as well as 128 gigs of internal storage. And this is an Android-based device, it's running Android 13. In terms of connectivity, we've got 5 GHz Wi-Fi, as well as Bluetooth 5.0. Moving along, we've also got a 5200 mAh battery. It says it gives you 7 hours of battery life on their webpage. We'll do a little bit more in-depth testing here at the end of the video. And a couple other things to note, this has both Hall sensor analog sticks as well as triggers, and it also has an internal gyroscope, and it does support video out via USB. And of course, we'll test all this stuff here throughout the video. Now, because I've already done an impressions video, I do want to approach this review a little bit differently. We're just going to focus on the good and bad and kind of come to our conclusions from there. And to change things up even further, we're going to start with the bad stuff. So I'm going to knock out the potential deal breakers right here in the beginning, and then we'll start talking about all the reasons why I like it afterwards. And so the idea here is I might scare you off right here in the beginning, but if you stick around, then it's just going to get better and better. So let's talk about the two major downsides I've seen with this device so far, and we'll start with the analog sticks. Now, in the grand scheme of things, there's nothing catastrophically wrong with these analog sticks. They very much so are modeled after the sticks that you would find in, for example, a Nintendo Switch Joy-Con. And this is the same style stick that we've been seeing for years at this point from Anbernic and other companies like it. And I've got a couple complaints about them. The first is that they just don't have a very good range of motion, especially when it comes to analog stick input. And over the years, we've seen a lot of updates from other companies, but none really from Anbernic when it comes to the mechanism of the sticks themselves. A good comparison is going to be with the Retroid Pocket 2S. These also are very small sticks and they are Hall sensor, but as you can see, they have a much wider range of motion, and so it feels like a true analog input. Whereas with the Anbernic device, it feels more like it's just kind of flopping left and right, and it's more like a flick than an actual movement. And so depending on the type of game that you're playing, this can feel really inhibiting. Now, aside from the feel of the stick itself, from the software side, I'm also not a huge fan of how these actually operate. If we use the Gamepad Tester app, you can see that the sticks will naturally snap to the far edges and then also to the cardinal points. And so what this essentially means is that it's very easy to do up, down, left, and right on the stick, as well as the corner. So you basically have an 8-way joystick. But if you try to do any sort of analog movement where you're trying to move within the quadrants in this Gamepad Tester app, you can see that it's actually pretty hard to maneuver within that space. And this is what I'm talking about here, that you have a limited amount of control. It's very easy to hit any of the 8-way direction points, but again, this is supposed to be an analog stick, and so you would expect an analog input. Let's do the same test, but with the Retroid Pocket 2S, and you can see here that I can freely move around within the quadrants. There's a little bit of snapping, but it is nothing like with the Anbernic device. And unfortunately, this is a software thing. Even if you were to change out the analog sticks on the RG Cube, which I wouldn't even recommend because then they wouldn't look nice and red, it still is going to give you a very similar experience. And so really our main hope when it comes to these analog stick inputs is that a software update might be able to fix this. And I'm not sure if Anbernic would be capable of making this fix, but I have seen community developers do similar things on similar devices. And so it might get better in the future, but as it stands right now, yeah, it's pretty limited. So let me show you what it's like when actually playing a game and why this might matter to you and why it may not. If we're playing an arcade game, for example Captain Commando, this had an 8-way input originally, and so as a result, I don't know, playing these types of games, absolutely no problem here. So when it comes to most arcade games that use that kind of joystick 8-way style input, there's no problem. I found this to be perfectly fine. On the other hand, when playing a true analog system, for example Nintendo 64 or Dreamcast or GameCube or PS2, all of those had analog stick inputs. And so you don't have that full 360-degree motion, and it's really apparent with games like Super Mario 64. It only feels like I can move in those 8 directions, but I don't have that full fluid motion like I would expect when controlling Mario. And so in this example, it does feel like my movement is a little bit restricted when playing one of these games, and that's quite a bummer because this device is capable of playing all those systems. And it's a similar issue when it comes to game streaming. There's a couple reasons why I don't like streaming on this device. The first is that playing 16:9 content on a 1:1 screen looks a little bit ridiculous. You have these huge black bars at the top and bottom. Not only that, the screen itself is super small. It's about 3.2 inches in a 16:9 aspect ratio, so it's just not a lot of fun. And then on top of that, using these tiny and limited sticks to control a game that's usually meant to be played with an Xbox controller just feels like a big mismatch. It's like playing an Xbox but with a Nintendo Switch Joy-Con. And so when you put it all together, I do feel like these sticks are somewhat limited, both from a hardware perspective in the fact that they just don't give me a full range of motion and don't feel really great to the touch, but then also on the software side because it doesn't give me a full analog experience. Now, one thing that's new with the RG Cube that we haven't seen from Anbernic before is that we now have true colored RGB lights. And within the Android settings, you can actually adjust this to a couple different parameters. For example, you can have it in a rainbow pattern, or what they call marquee, which is just going to kind of cycle through the rainbow around the edge. You can also just set it to a single color of your choice, or even have like a breathing or fading in and out effect as well. If you're in the top-down Android setting, if you long press on the ambient light, you can actually bring up a bunch of different parameters, including changing the brightness as well as the speed of when the color changes. And so I think that Ambernic did a pretty good job setting up the RGB lighting here. We've got a full range of functions, and even though it's a little bit unintuitive, once you figure it out, it's pretty easy to use. Okay, so that's the first negative I had about this device. Just these analog sticks seem a little bit underwhelming for various reasons. So let's move on to the next one, which is fairly complex. This is called Ambernic's Light Bleed Gate. Now, on the day that my review units arrived, I got 2 of them, and I did some testing with them initially under my studio conditions, and everything seemed to be fine. However, as soon as I played them in a dark environment, I noticed there was a lot of light bleed around the edges. So here up top, you can see one of my original review units, and you can see that, yeah, this is pretty gnarly. Now, this is at full brightness in a dark environment, so it's a little bit exacerbated, but as you can see, it's still pretty bad. Now, as soon as I found out about this, I shared it on social media just to warn people about it, and then I asked Ambernic what was going on. And the story they told me was that they had messed up the shipping, that essentially they had found a bunch of devices that had this really bad light bleed, they put them off to the side, and then they sent those off accidentally to all the reviewers. And so they said that it was all going to be fixed with the retail units. They'd already found the issue, they'd found the fix, and they even were going to send a new unit over that wasn't going to have light bleed, and that's the one you can see down below. And this is also why I have 3 units, 2 that have light bleed, and then the one they sent afterward that doesn't have any at all. And yeah, it looks pretty good. And so initially I thought, all right, we're good. This is a non-issue. They just had some problems, but now they fixed them. However, a few days later, a bunch of retail units started arriving to customers who had paid for them, and they also were finding light bleed. Now, it's hard to say how many have light bleed because I'm just going off of like Reddit and Discord, but if I had to guess, I would say about 50-50 shot that you're going to have some sort of light bleed, and the amount of light bleed is going to vary a bunch. And as soon as I heard about this, I also reached out to Ambernic, but they've basically ghosted me at this point. I'm not getting any sort of response. So in lieu of any sort of public statement from them about what they're going to be doing about it, I have 2 thoughts that I want to share. The first is that you often will see this kind of light bleed on cheaper devices, but I wouldn't consider this to be a cheap device. It's between $150 and $200. And I think that at this price point, this kind of glaring issue is unacceptable. And I think this is different than like a company making a bad D-pad or a stick that needs upgrading or maybe software that could be updated down the line. To me, this is the kind of thing that probably shouldn't have shipped in the first place. Now, it is possible to do like a DIY fix. I've seen a couple of those on the internet, but I personally think that this is Ambernic's problem to solve. And the second thought I have about it is that Ambernic is obviously capable of shipping devices without light bleed, because they sent one over to me, and still about 50% of devices are getting them without light bleed as well. And so to me, it seems to be a very easy issue to detect. Just turn on the device in the dark, and then if you see the light bleed, don't ship that out to a customer. And since they're obviously able to send out devices without light bleed, that should be the standard, and that should be the standard that we hold them to. Now, I have been told that Ambernic will make it right, so if you do have light bleed that they will fix it, but that appears not to be like a wholesale exchange of your device. Instead, they will just ship out a front case with a new screen. This means that you will still have to take your device apart and then put it all back together with this new front plate, and I don't think that's acceptable either. Now, as I'll show later in the video, I think the device was designed well, and it is fairly easy to repair, but I still don't think that's something that you should be doing. Again, I think this is Ambernic's problem to solve, and you shouldn't be required to repair your own device. So the way I see it, as I go through the rest of this video and I talk about all the things I love about it, I wanted to bring this up first. In the end, I think that you should probably be aware that at least right now, if you buy one of these devices, it carries some sort of risk of light bleed. And if you do decide to pick one up right now, you should be willing to accept that risk or a less than ideal exchange process. And in lieu of any sort of confirmation or statement from Ambernic that they have fixed this issue for all future shipments, I think the safest route would be to wait until it's available on Amazon. It's going to cost a little bit more at that point, but you'll have the peace of mind knowing that it's a pretty easy return experience. Now, when it comes down to it, this light bleed is not a deal breaker for me. It is something that you have to specifically put into certain conditions before you can even see it. You have to turn the brightness way up, and you have to be in the dark. And I tend to play things relatively on the dark side when playing in a darker environment. Not only that, when actually playing a game, I do find it relatively hard to see, and I think this is mostly subjective, so it'll be up to you whether or not you think this is a big deal. If anything, I think the fact that this is an avoidable issue really shines a light on the QA process from Ambernic. Are they actually testing these devices before they ship them out? What's really going on here? And there's always been a risk when buying one of these handhelds that something's going to go wrong and you'll have to go through the exchange process, but with this light bleed issue they've released, and you can see there's going to be 3 different colors available, gray, black, and blue. Now they did send over 2 out of the 3 models, and so here's a look at them. I actually think that the blue one looks the best, although I think the gray with the DMG style buttons also looks pretty good too. And based on the promotional materials from Anbernic, the black model just seems to be solid black through and through. Either way, let's open up the box and see what we have inside. And it does seem to be just your typical stuff. So we have an instruction manual that will tell you about hotkeys, things like that. And then also a USB-A to USB-C charging cable, and that's it. And jumping into my first impressions, the first thing that really caught my eye is just the deep blue color of this blue model. I think it looks really good. In addition, I like the overall rounded look of the device. I think it looks nice and comfortable and inviting. And sure enough, when holding it, this is a very comfortable handheld. I also appreciate that the D-pad is up top, which means it's going to be great for retro-styled and D-pad-centric games. My next observation was that this was surprisingly thin. I thought it was going to be a little bit thicker of a device. To give you an idea, at the thinnest point, it's around 17 millimeters. This means it's a tiny bit thicker than the RG35XXH, but then also a little bit thinner than the Retroid Pocket 2S. Now, at its thickest point, which is where the shoulder buttons meet the D-pad, it's a little bit thicker. It's 24 millimeters. That makes it about 4 millimeters thicker than the Anbernic RG35XXH at its thickest point, but then also it's about 4 millimeters thinner than the Retroid Pocket 2S, which has quite a bit of a flare when it comes to its trigger buttons. Either way, I was surprised at how thin this device was overall. Now, we are going to go through every component here, but I do want to kind of change things up. So instead of going over buttons first, let's talk about the I/O up top. And it is pretty standard stuff. So we got our shoulder and trigger buttons on each side, and then also our power button, then volume up and down, and then we have our LED indicator. To the right of that, we've got a USB-C port for charging, and then to the right of that, we have our reset button labeled with an R. And then finally, we have our mini HDMI out port if you wanted to connect this to a TV or a computer monitor. Next, I want to take a look at the bottom. So first thing, we have dual stereo speakers, as you can see on each end, and then we have 2 micro SD card slots. One will be for the operating system and the other will be for additional games. And then of course in the center we have a 3.5mm headphone jack. And while we're down here, let's do a quick sound test. We're going to do Streets of Rage 2 at 100% volume. And overall, the audio quality here is about what I would expect at a device that is probably going to be under $100. The audio is crisp and clear, but it does lack bass, and that's pretty typical with these smaller handhelds. There's just not a lot of room for that bass to really kick in. Either way, at this price point, I don't really have any complaints about the audio quality. I think it's just fine. Now let's take a look at the design when it comes to the face of the device, and there are a couple things that are different with this one compared to the others. The biggest difference is this M button here on the bottom. Typically it's on the top or on the sides of the device, so I like that it's on the front right here. This is particularly handy because it allows you to press this as your hotkey, which means that you can press M and start to close out of a game. It's a really natural sequence. Same thing with pressing M and R2 to engage the fast forward. It's just a very intuitive setup, so I appreciate that. Next, let's take a look at these shoulders and triggers. And so these have the same kind of grid texture to them as the last Anbernic device called the RG Cube. So I do like that we have an additional texture here to make everything a little bit more grippy. Now, both the shoulder and the trigger buttons have a very similar feel to them. They are both digital, so the triggers are not analog, and they also are very clicky. If you like having a tactile feedback as you're pressing down on these buttons, I think you'll like it. It's almost like pressing down on a mouse click. However, for my part, I found these to be pretty loud buttons. Let me give you a quick audio demonstration of just how loud they can be. Now, clicky shoulder and trigger buttons is nothing new when it comes to Anbernic devices in its feel. The D-pads from Anbernic tend to be a little bit on the more stiff side, but they here comes from playing pockets as well. Next, let's talk a little bit about this screen and some of the benefits of having a 4-inch display with a 4:3 aspect ratio. And the main benefit here comes from playing 4:3 content, which is the majority of the type of games you'll be playing with this chipset anyway. And even though the difference between 3.5 and 4 inches doesn't sound like a lot, when we're talking about a diagonal display, that actually does result in a lot more screen real estate. And for me personally, I've always found a 3.5-inch display to be just a little bit on the small side. So for me, 4 inches is just about perfect with this type of handheld. Even when comparing it against another 4-inch display like the square one found on the RG Cube, you can see that the 4:3 content on the device up top still looks a lot larger than it does on the RG Cube. And this is the largest 4x3 screen that we have on the market right now, and so it doesn't get any better than this, at least when it comes to 4x3. However, it's not a perfect display, and a lot of that comes down to the resolution, which is only 640 by 480. For many systems like Dreamcast and PlayStation, that's all going to scale just fine, but for others like Nintendo and Super Nintendo, it's not going to be a good fit. Here's a look at Mega Man X playing with integer scaling turned off, so it's going to blow up the full screen, and we don't have any shader applied. And you can see that the pixels are imbalanced, especially when you look at the life bar on the left. And that's because a 480p resolution just doesn't scale very well when it comes to Super Nintendo games like this. Ideally, we would want something like 720p, which is going to give us more pixels to work with. Now, there are some workarounds. For example, I prefer to use the Pixelate shader, which is found within RetroArch. This is going to balance out the pixels, although it will make the image just a little bit less sharp. I still think it's definitely playable. And so generally when I play Nintendo and Super Nintendo, I like to apply a shader like this just to make sure everything looks nice and balanced. Okay, next let's talk a little bit about the stock software experience. Now, the device is going to come with a 64GB card, and they've been using a high-end card called Kioxia lately, and these are pretty stable cards. Now, the software itself is the exact same as it's been with the other XX devices, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, especially because I've already made full written and video guides about this software experience. And I'll leave those linked down below if you haven't checked them out already, but let's do just a quick overview of what to expect when you first turn the device on. On the far left, we have what they call game rooms. This is going to be standalone emulators, and to be honest, I do not recommend using these at all. And that's because in the second column, we have what they call RA games. This is mostly going to be your RetroArch cores, but then also some standalone emulators too. And in general, these have the best features as well as the best performance, so I would launch your games from here instead of from the other one. To the right of that, we have our App Center. Within here, we've got an MP3 player, a video player, and an ebook reader. But then also on the bottom, there's something called the App section, and I do recommend checking this out as well. Here you can make all sorts of adjustments within the software, but the most important one for me is the one that's called Quick Shutdown. I recommend going in here and turning this on. That means that anytime you're in a game, you can just tap the power button, it's going to shut it down, and then when you turn it back on, it's going to go right back to where you were. Further down in the main menu, we have our favorites section, so you can add any game here just to make it a little bit easier to find. You've also got a history section where you can find your previously played games, and then also a search function. If you don't want to navigate through every system, you can just search for your game right here. And then finally, on the far right, we have our settings section. There are a couple things here worth noting. The first is the lock screen. This is going to be set to 1 minute by default. That means the device will just shut off the screen if you don't touch it for a minute. I personally like to set this one to never. You can also adjust the brightness of the display, although there is a hotkey to do that without having to go into the menu. Additionally, there is one new section specifically for this device, and it's the LED settings section. Within here, you can turn off the RGB lights if you don't want to see them, but then you can also adjust the patterns and the colors and the brightness as well as the speed all within here. And you've got quite a few different options, including the ability to just set it to one specific color and leave it like that. Either way, if you do want to mess around with your RGB lights, this is the section you would go into. And then finally, one other thing worth noting, if you don't like to hear that sound when you're navigating through the menu, you can find that within the settings. It's called button sound. Just turn that off and it's going to be silent when you move up and down throughout the menu. And really, that's about it when it comes to operating the stock software experience. If you want to learn more, I'll have my guides linked down below. Now, one of the benefits of this device using the exact same chip as other devices within the same line is that custom firmware has already been developed for these other devices. And I went ahead and tested all the other custom firmwares that are available, including Newly and MuOS and MinUI, and unfortunately none of them are working with this device right now. I assume this has to do with the display driver. I think this one is a native landscape display, and so as a result, yeah, they're just not working out of the box. It is going to take some time for the custom firmware developers to develop for it. And so really, I think it's just a matter of time before this device will also work with those other operating systems. Okay, before we jump into game testing, I want to take a moment and pause and talk about something that I'm calling Portgate. The idea here is that every time Anbernic releases a new product, there's always some sort of weird controversy or fumble with the release, and this one is no exception. The most recent issue has been with the RG Cube, which I went into detail about in my full review, but essentially there was a bunch of light bleed around the edges of the screen, and it's still a crapshoot whether or not you're going to get that light bleed either. And so there is a risk when it comes to buying one of these devices, and we still haven't gotten any definitive answer about what's supposed to be going on with it. Most recently, I've been hearing about the RG35XX SP. Apparently, people have just been charging this, and it is making like chips blow up on the device. One guy even had his catch fire. And so I'm not sure what's going on here. I am not an electrical engineer. I'm not qualified to talk about it, but I think it has something to do with just cheap components that they're using when it comes to the charging mechanisms that they have within these devices. And I'm not sure why the SP in particular is having these issues, if it's something to do with just the form factor or maybe the components that they used in it. But either way, there is some small risk with that as well. They've sold tens and thousands of these, and I've seen like 3 cases altogether, but still, anything above 0 is a little bit scary when you think about charging this thing that might blow up someday. And so those two issues are definitely like quality related, a little bit more warm. Now, none of this got to the point where I would say I was uncomfortable, but it was definitely something I noticed from Super Nintendo and beyond. And so let's do a quick teardown and look at how these components are working, because I have a suspicion this is where the CPU is going to be. And yeah, sure enough, here's a look at the inside of the PCB. On the right side, we have a rumble of the RG405M, and this is about the closest that we've come so far. Also, thanks to the fact that the device is a little bit larger due to the screen and the fact that it's a little bit more comfortable, it's still pocketable, so I think it's a pretty good balance there. I also like that this device, like the others within the XX line, is fully featured, so it has HDMI, Bluetooth, and Wi-Fi. And some of these features I still need to test before I do a final review. But before we get to some of those things, let's talk a little bit about what I don't like about it so far. And number one here is the touchy D-pad. I think it's really going to depend on the type of game that you're playing, but yes, this one absolutely gets accidental diagonals. I also found that the device gets relatively warm, which is a bit of a pet peeve for me, and it really starts around the Super Nintendo level and then just kind of goes up from there. And then finally, the other thing that is kind of a nitpick is the fact that this is just a very saturated market, and a lot of that is Anbernic's fault. At this point, they've been releasing devices at a breakneck pace, about 3 weeks per device. And this can be a good thing if you're just now getting into handhelds and you want to make sure you get the one that fits you the best. But the problem is that there's a lot of fatigue with everyone else who's already bought a similar device over the past couple years. Every time Anbernic releases a new device, it seems to be a little bit of an upgrade, but it also is kind of incremental, and so sometimes it just doesn't justify buying a whole new device just because a couple things are better than previously. Not only that, the insane pace that they have been releasing all these devices means that nobody can really enjoy the ones that they have before a new one comes out and all that FOMO starts kicking in again. At this point, myself and many others just want time to play these devices so we can find out what we like and what we don't like before we move on to the next one. And so even though I do think that Anbernic made a pretty solid device right here, I think the enthusiasm for these types of devices is starting to wane. Anyway, that's a quick summary of the things I like and what I don't like about the 40XX. The others with the same chipset. And in most respects, it's going to come down to size as well as form factor. If you prefer vertical handhelds, I think it's a no-brainer. You can just pick up the 35XX Plus here on the left and you'll be good to go. Same thing if you're a fan of clamshells. It's a no-brainer to recommend the RG35XX SP. It's really going to come down to whether or not you prefer a horizontal handheld, just like I do. Months. Instead, he might be better off saving up his money to see whether or not Anbernic or a different company is able to come up with something that's a little bit better of a fit, or at least worth that upgrade. Okay, so now that we've gone through all those different use cases and kind of figured out where it's going to be the best fit for certain people, let's actually start wrapping it up and kind of summarize whether or not I think this handheld is worth picking up in the first place. And I think if I was to put it in just the most reductive terms, I could say that yes, this is an excellent handheld for the price, and it is one that I could recommend, especially if it's your very first handheld on the market. If we want to go another step further, if you're specifically looking for retro style games and playing them in a 4:3 aspect ratio, I think this is going to be an excellent fit, and I think that 4-inch screen does push it a little bit above some others just because things are just a little bit more bigger and brighter and more vibrant and just easier to read the text, and I do appreciate that. And I also appreciate the fact that you have all of that packed into a device that I would consider to be pocketable. And so if we're just looking at this handheld, weighing the good and the bad that I mentioned in my previous video, yes, I think that there are more good than bad, and it is a device I can recommend. However, I have a couple little asterisks I want to put at the end of that recommendation. The first is that I don't recommend this device if you already have something very similar already, like the RG35XXH or maybe the TrimUI Smart Pro. I don't think there's a big enough gap from this device to those other ones to warrant that $70 plus shipping. And so unless you're a collector and you pick these things up specifically as a hobby, I would say that it's probably better to wait until there's a clearer difference between the device you already have and the one that we're talking about today. And then finally, the second asterisk I have is that even though $70 plus shipping is a reasonable price for everything that you're getting with this device, if you just wait a few months, it's actually going to be a lot lower. This is a trend that we've seen specifically with these Anbernic devices over the past year or so. It'll come out at a reasonable price, but then somehow down the line, once it gets to those third-party distributors, they start trying to undercut Anbernic's prices, and all of a sudden it's going to be a good $20 cheaper than Anbernic is selling it. My guess is that within the next couple months on AliExpress, we'll see this device available between $50 and $60 with free shipping on sale. So if you're willing to just wait a little bit, you'll probably get an even better deal than this one right now. And if you wait a couple other months, you'll probably see 2 or 3 new Anbernic devices coming out, and maybe one of those will be a better fit for you. It's always better to wait if you're not in a big hurry to be able to pick up a handheld. And so really that's about it for this video. I just wanted to make the point that yes, it's a good handheld, and I think if you're just picking up your very first handheld focused on retro gaming, this is an excellent choice. However, among all of the others that are out there, it may not be worth it just because there are so many other good deals right now. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Are you picking the RG40XXH up? Or are you in the market for something else? Or maybe you're just going to stick with the handheld that you are.
Get it?
Get it?
Hey,
It's a
Phil.
pig land.
Eyes.
Yeah.
No, I might have stolen the car, but it was because my friend was like
Such a bitch.
she was dying.
Is this a real story that you're gonna expose yourself on in second year intro?
Such a bitch. He stole my fishnets. I was pissed.
Okay.
Oh my god.
So,
Oh my
I'm
choker.
screwed. And basically, everything happens here. And I'm like, well, I'm going to have to just start from scratch. And I did. So I actually had to make a whole new bank account.
No, I never stole a
basically
car.
worked
That
with
was
these
a
companies to get everything
exaggeration.
reestablished. And it screwed me over for a while. It actually screwed me over for several months, where I was all messed up money-wise. And I talked about it publicly on my stream. So what June is doing,
Not really.
he's taking these clips that my detractors assume were
No.
Not clips. It's a factual document from your bank account. There's no clips happening here. What
Sir,
clips?
No clips.
This is a film that June has put together, sir. There are no clips.
Show
It's
me
not-
clips.
No.
What's clips?
referencing these bank leaks. And he's saying, there's your evidence he's talking about.
Huh?
No, it had nothing to do with these bank leaks at all. All right?
He is lost so far in the sauce here. He has no idea what he's talking about. These bank leaks outline exactly where you went, your billing accounts, and the Apple iTunes, which you now agreed that you did. You admitted to this now, sir. And now you're saying that's irrelevant because of this other thing fraud people did?
That's the made up thing that he's only just now decided to come up with.
Right. What?
It's all on the spot.
What's going on here?
So, when
don't
people
know.
started
What planet is
talking to me
this?
about these
Let him
bank
cook. He's
leaks,
weaving the web.
I tried to look into them. The only place that had information about them was Kiwi Farm. So at first I was very apprehensive about going over to Kiwi Farms to look at them, but eventually I did give it a gander. And
Give it
what
a
I'm-
gander.
Say it like that.
80 years old. Give it a gander. I gave it a curmudgeon gander.
What's good for the goose is good for the gander, as they say in the vernacular. Thank you, everybody.
Understand, 'cause by the time I
Where's my Werther's?
over there, excuse me, basically didn't have access to any of the stuff that they were saying. was
Chewy
their
only. I don't like the hard
evidence,
ones.
All right, because let
I
me
like
put it in
the hard
perspective.
ones.
If this
I like
is
them both.
real, all right, which I'm telling you it's not, you can judge for yourself
Yeah,
If
we are.
this is
We
real,
are. The internet
it's
judged for
real.
itself.
what
You
you think.
fucking
If this is
bitch.
real, someone had to find a way to basically impersonate me, like I said, reverse
Yes.
engineer the account. However,
They used how they got the bank leaks was using his social security number, and I think they just brute forced because the last 4 digits were doxed, right? I believe. I
No,
can't
sorry.
remember
They
exactly.
got a partial of his social insurance number from the bankruptcy documents because his social insurance number are in a redacted form on that.
And I think he just brute forced it and then called the number, which is all you need to do is give the social
That's
security
right.
number and the bank account number, and then you could get the transactions. And he did that 50 times to create this
Yep.
list.
Like
But yes, go
500
ahead.
or some shit.
they did it. They literally committed a federal crime every
That's
time
true.
they accessed the
That's
account.
true.
That's
That's
fraud.
true.
You're getting your
That
meat
part
right
is
out.
true.
that suggests that it's real and that it's yours, Philip.
That's right.
If it's a crime,
If this
Good
is someone
point.
else, there's no crime here against you, right?
Yeah,
big
if
up
this
for
is
him.
made up, it's not a crime. Hello?
The
Big ups
first
to
three
everyone.
digits are based on where you're born. That's
I
crazy.
didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
I did not know
Oh,
that.
interesting. Thank you,
Sorry.
Derek. I did not know that.
Thank you, Derek.
Thank you, Kaiser. I did not know that.
Committed a federal crime every time they
Same
asked
deal
the
with
account
IP
was
addresses.
fraud,
IP
they
addresses will tell you
shouldn't
what
have
region
access to
someone
data,
lives in.
Well, I
right?
knew that.
And then they did it repeatedly over and over to keep getting transaction history.
Yes.
So if he said, what did TJ Gamebox say? They did it increments of 10. They did it like
Yeah.
500 times.
Yeah.
So they committed 500 federal crimes.
Well, it's not
Actually,
you,
it's
so who
one
cares?
crime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Yeah.
And that
No
actually doesn't
exaggeration.
change. That doesn't change the facts of this, right? Again,
Mm-hmm.
if you're claiming that it is a federal crime, you're implicitly saying that these are true.
yes.
So,
To get this data, okay?
Yeah.
so it's real data.
Crazy. Now, what I'm gonna understand, this spreadsheet was made because I guess people were saying there was a call-in system.
Yeah.
So they were calling into a bank,
Yeah.
putting in some kind of security code, and it was giving them access to the account, and then they would just sit there for hours on end listening to transactions, typing it into a spreadsheet.
Yeah,
And
it was a
that's
ton
how
of
they
work.
came up with this data, okay?
Data.
Fair enough if
I
you
would-
believe that. But the bottom line is it's not verifiable, right? At all. There's no way to verify
Yes,
Yeah,
it
it actually is verifiable,
It's
sir.
extremely
the- and-
verifiable based on the
and-
transactions listed.
Yeah.
And all you have to do, there's like, I mean, and again, this would be the kind of thing that you might say, oh, so what am I going to go back and look at every DSP, this Phil's Day Off segment and say, I went to this store, I went this store. You don't have to do any of that, okay?
No.
ALT
Just
Insider,
they
what is Kat Burnell's birthday? I'm sure you know.
I don't know, but she got a Burger
Okay,
King.
okay.
I
He's
know
pretending
she
he
got a
doesn't know
Burger King
Kat's
burger.
birthday. But all you gotta do is look at Kat's birthday,
Yep.
see that he went to Burger King, figure out the tax on a couple of chicken sandwiches,
And it's game over. Game
there
over.
it is.
Yep.
supposedly doing a phone system and it doesn't work anymore. Like right now, you can't just call and get the data. It would, by the way, if you did, it would be a federal crime. But if anyone wanted to, you can't
What?
just call and get the data. It doesn't exist anymore. It's gone.
Hey,
all
move
right?
on.
So you're taking the word of someone who supposedly committed 500 federal crimes.
What do you mean supposedly?
It's not.
Hey.
Yeah. So he's trying to like
Oh my
say,
God.
don't believe this guy because he committed so many
'Cause
crimes.
he's a criminal.
But he also he's a criminal. He did a crime.
If this was like a non-digital crime, like if this was like back in the fucking 50s or whatever, and I went to a bank's dumpster and I grabbed like a bunch of like documents that they threw out that happened to be transaction histories of Phil Burnell, right? Then what would you say? Like, because
That's
those
not
are
real.
those are on paper, and I can show you these, and I can show you these, so we can verify them.
It's
If this is a
he's trying
crime,
Right.
He's trying to say, don't use your eyes and look at this document. Don't believe
Trust
anything
me,
in this
bro.
document because that guy's a criminal. So therefore, anything
Yeah.
he finds is not worth looking at because it's not real. He's a criminal.
I'm not a criminal. I've told the truth once in the last
Sound
7
good?
years. Believe
Yeah,
me.
by the way, I'm an admitted liar and a massive liar for 7 years, so please do believe me. What are you gonna? Oh, you're gonna believe this criminal or me, the admitted liar, who is
Yeah,
also a
which-
criminal but hasn't been caught yet?
Choose
Right.
your fighter, assholes.
That this data is correct, and you're going to submit this on the internet as if it's believable evidence of anything.
It is
all right?
very
I want you to
believable.
think about how insane that is. I just believe it.
Okay.
Because we just believe that everything that's with Phil is bad.
No.
So obviously this is real, correct? Now again, here's the thing.
Yeah, please.
If it's real, why wouldn't I admit it? I've already admitted to you.
What?
I played them.
Because it makes
I
you
spent
look
a ton of money
guilty.
on
What?
it. There's no reason for me
Oh,
to deny it.
see?
That's the most dangerous thing in these bank leaks is all of the spending, right? On a mobile. But I'm
Yeah.
gonna tell you this because I've already talked about it the other day.
Also the
People
alcoholism.
listened on that stream, but now that I'm doing the big documentary react, allow me to explain to you why this makes absolutely no sense. I
No.
went through some of it, all right? I did, I'll admit it, but I want to see why would people think that this is me. Okay? So, first of all, there's a million of these iTunes transactions.
Yes.
Okay? And the reason that this is very suspect, all right, that you would think that this is real.
What?
All along, the narrative of my detractors has been, well, Phil gets all these tips in every day, right? And then he immediately goes and he blows all that money on WWE champions.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, yeah.
Well, my tips are in my PayPal account. Which means if I was making these transactions in WWE champions from the PayPal account, it would say PayPal transaction through my PayPal. It wouldn't show on my bank statement at all. It wouldn't show up at all. It would be all through PayPal. All right?
No.
So number one, that narrative.
Okay,
No,
I
it's
do
not,
have,
actually.
I do have a little
It
proof
couldn't
for
even
this.
happen. All right?
I-
So you say, well,
Yeah.
Fuck, sorry. Okay, when I get my games on CD keys, and they do all their shit through PayPal. Even if I use my card, I get a notification from PayPal.
That you
And
your card?
you see
Okay.
that on my bank.
Yeah.
You see his idea here is this that he's trying to say like, well, I don't use iTunes to spend for things. I use PayPal because no, he said, excuse me.
Yeah.
The detractors always say that I use my PayPal. So therefore, why is iTunes here if the detractors always say I use my PayPal?
Yeah.
That's what he's saying here, I think.
But again, like that is just suggesting that you're spending more that we don't see because for some
That's
reason
true.
we are still seeing these transactions here.
Yeah.
So
I
don't
okay,
know.
Big Guy will. Big Guy has something to show here. Oh shit, people sending me stuff here.
Oh,
Big Guy has a
no.
clip here. All right, let's play it done. I'll get it. Hold on.
Forget
Get
all
that
that.
done.
Maybe you did pay out of your bank account. Maybe you didn't have any money in your PayPal. So now we're going to change the narrative, but that's okay. Let's let them change the narrative.
Well, your
okay?
iTunes and your PayPal are connected to your bank account is the
Right,
thing.
each transaction.
Yeah, so here's how he pays for his WB champions. Listen to this very carefully.
All right, so we're going to do that. However,
Listen carefully.
in order to do that, I have to hide the account, and the reason being because when you click on that, it basically brings up the funding screen, and the funding screen shows fucking shit. And I'm like, well, I can't do that. I don't want you to see my fucking credit cards and shit or bank cards.
bank cards. Phew. Okay, sorry.
Gotcha,
that was close.
gotcha. Credit cards.
I thought he was going to destroy our narrative by saying that he paid on credit cards, which would sort of destroy this narrative because why would they be on his bank account if he was paying for his credit card,
Unfortunately,
right?
he didn't.
Here's the deal.
That's very lucky.
If these are WWE Champions transactions that say Apple iTunes on them, okay, I'm here to tell you as a player of WWE Champions, that doesn't job. And here's why. Increasingly more over the years, WWE Champions as well as other mobile games have tried to get people to spend less in their store in the game and more in third-party websites. I showed you this. When I was playing WWE
You said that that's
Champions
recently,
last
though.
week,
This
right
is
here
back in
on
2020, Philip.
Yeah, this is a while
recent.
ago.
Actually, it was on DSP Gaming, but I showed you the web store. And I said, you see in the web store that all of this looks like it's better value? Because it is. They actually sell better packs and better value packs on the web store than they do in the game itself. Why?
Are you fucking
because
kidding
when you
me?
buy something through the game, through iTunes or through the Google store, whatever it could be, they make less money. Because Apple, Google takes a cut of each
all
transaction.
irrelevant. Do not get hypnotized by this, guys.
Because then they lose out on money. But if you go to their third-party website and spend money, they get all that.
What do you mean
money.
third party? You mean their website? It's not a third party.
I know. What the fuck?
It makes absolutely no sense that if someone was mass spending in a game like WWE Champions, that they would ever be mass spending through the store itself, and it would.
Yeah, I guess they'd have to be a profoundly stupid pig roach to do something like that, huh? You'd have to be a really.
Someone that has shown some great financial acumen, right, would have to do that.
Yeah, you'd have to be a real clown with your money, really poor with money to be doing something like that, huh? You'd have to be really lazy and stupid, and that's not you, right?
Ease of access is a real thing with Philip. He doesn't give a shit. If you can spend money to get something quick, I'll pay to get it quick.
And I don't know, and those mobile game microtransactions, they make it real easy. That's sometimes you barely even gotta confirm, right? You just gotta. You just do that accidentally sometimes.
Click a button and you're in.
You would literally be shooting yourself in the foot every time because you're spending more and getting less. The better
Well, you love that though.
Right.
Their website.
The more expensive, the better.
Why would you do this? Why would someone go and spend all this money in the store?
It wasn't like that back then.
Are you kidding?
Because this was, you just said that it was in recent years.
This is tough, but this is someone telling you who has admitted to spending thousands on a Candy Crush game. That, please don't believe this, because if I did this, it would be stupid. Well, what he is doing is spending thousands on a Candy Crush game. But that's not stupid. But spending money in the wrong way to get said Candy Crush wrestlers, that would be stupid.
Guys, why would I be going to the bar to get drunk when I could just go to a liquor store and buy the liquor from there and drink that? You guys are crazy. Like, obviously I would be going to get the liquor from the store.
This is wild.
Ignorant. But the argument is, I constantly play the game. I spend so much on it. I know.
YouTube commenter: the WWE Champions web portal didn't exist to Q4 2020. So
this is Q2 right here. I'm seeing Q2.
Yeah. With a game like that, you can basically be pissing away all the extra value I would have gotten if I bought it through the website.
And that doesn't sound. Hey, Snid City, big ups.
Hey, dude. lot of
is
tracker beam
debunked.
cards
Number
today.
two, the whole idea that these are
I like it.
WWE Champions transactions is already debunked. Okay.
No,
No.
you can't say debunked by if I did it, it would be stupid. When everything you've
I
done in
need
this
to
documentary is
notice
stupid.
something first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That you cannot
this
say
should be
something is
called Phil is
debunked.
stupid.
And
Yeah.
like just because you like it can be something else, that doesn't mean that it's definitely not this. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Right.
Like it's still a possibility, and you haven't disproved that, and you're the one that's asserting that this is not true, and therefore the burden of proof is on you to show that it is not true. So
Amen.
Debunked.
You can analyze this even further. Like one day, it claims there's like 3
A lot
or
of
4
Bob Hoskins
DoorDash
cards. Hell yeah.
I want to show you here real quick, just for anyone that might not believe any of all the stuff that's going on here. Catherine's birthday. Someone said in chat. Could you say that again, please? When her birthday is? The person that said
I
that.
think it was
'Cause I actually
October
don't know
5th,
it.
October 6th, something like that.
It is an October.
Wait, no, is that right?
Wait,
Hey, there it is.
is that? Wait, what?
No, that's June. Isn't that
That's
June?
Oh,
8th?
that
June
was a
8th?
different Burger King trip. Hold on, I thought that if I
must
found
be,
Burger King, it
must
would be
be.
it. When's her birthday?
Yeah, I mean,
I'll
you can
find
just
it.
you can just sort
It could
by
be
you can
in
just
June.
just filter for Burger King. I'm sure it doesn't show up that much. Couldn't
I'm not in the
possibly
actual
show up
doc.
that often,
I'm looking
right?
at Meerkat's video about it, but okay, I'll find it.
transactions in one day. In my home, there's 2 people, myself and my wife. Why would we have ordered
Yeah, he
DoorDash
self-filtered
like
himself.
4 times in one day? Do you think we eat 4
I
meals
don't
in a day?
Oh
You tell
my
me.
All right.
Why would
God.
Some of
you
these
do
things that they
that?
actually pulled out of this, the detractors that is, and analyzed, right? One of the things that they said, look at all the money he spent at the pet
She's
store.
fat.
Okay, how does that even make sense?
Sorry.
I have one cat.
What?
His name is Jasper. You guys have seen him. He's on the streams all the time. I have
You
one-
say yourself you get pet supplies every week. You say this every week, and he has admitted to ordering DoorDash 3 times in one day before.
Kitty,
That's right.
right?
Kitty.
If that's the case, why would I have spent insane amounts of money at the pet store? The way
I
that
don't
they're
know.
claiming
Maybe
I
because
did?
you're a wasteful
What did I
idiot.
buy him?
You
10
I don't know.
probably
toys,
dump the
42
entire bag
cat
of litter
beds,
in there and then throw it
700
out when
toys?
it's fucking filled
Like,
with
what are you
piss.
talking about? If you
Probably
actually
2 or 3
analyze
bags of kitty litter a week.
this, it looks
Yeah.
like this is someone who has a bunch of pets, who
What?
has a family, who is doing
What?
And is addicted to WV champions?
family spending,
What?
and someone in the
And it
house
lives in
is spending a ton
Washington.
of money through iTunes on something, and you don't know
Come
what.
on.
Right? It doesn't look
Come
like
on.
me.
Yes,
This stuff doesn't even corroborate. And the thing
Oh
is,
my
you can
God.
argue again.
It
It's all
doesn't look like me. It looks exactly like you, and according to his own logic, he spouts every week.
They matched it to places you said you'd gone on the exact motherfucking day.
Yeah, and again, just because you're looking at this particular section of the data that's been filtered for microtransactions, Philip, you gotta like actually read through the document, because if you did, you'd notice that it's like you could basically draw a map and follow it around and just do a Phil's Day Off segment from that.
And they've got your same HOA, the same
Yeah.
gated community. Like,
All
are
the
you
shit,
fucking
all the
kidding?
shit that you directly talk about doing, all within a 5-mile radius of your house, by the way.
Oh my
What the
God.
fuck?
the stuff doesn't even corroborate.
Yes, it
The thing is,
does.
you can argue again. It's all circumstantial. You're correct.
They also
This
get
entire
payments from
thing is
Twitch and YouTube, that's
circumstantial.
right.
There's way
No,
you
this
could
is
ever
actually
prove that
direct
this is
evidence.
real, because it's a federal crime. It's
Oh, Cat's
literally
birthday's
not
tomorrow?
evidence of anything,
What?
because the person who apparently got the information, if it really is real, committed 500 federal crimes to get it, and now there's no
Oh,
evidence.
sorry, Philip, I'm gonna correct you on that really quickly, because
Yes, please.
because that's actually what you're talking about is, you know, admissibility of evidence in a court of law. If evidence is like acquired through illegal means, then it's not admissible in court. Luckily, this is not court.
And I'm
Right.
not felted, by the way. Her birthday's tomorrow, right? European
Yeah,
puts
that's
the
what I
month
was
in the
told.
middle, right?
Oh, he's a European,
but
of
it's
course.
Still
September.
not. It's the month before then. We're a month early then.
Oh, Quilted! LT Quilted! You are
It
Quilted!
doesn't work anymore.
September
damn it.
6th. Thank you, Maspera, for that
So
information.
how is the bank leaks a big
Quilted
thing?
again.
Honestly.
Quilted.
Like, when you start actually looking at it and you analyze it, it makes no sense. And there's
Actually-
idiots in my
Actually,
chat
it makes
right
great.
now
It makes
saying,
what
great
are they
sense.
saying?
Come clean to what? I already
The
came
lies.
clean.
No, you didn't.
Played
Yeah,
this
you
show.
came clean.
I have played it.
Came
I
clean.
said
on May 1st. Hey,
Saying if I spent my money this way would be stupid is not coming clean.
lots of money.
Oh,
No,
it's
it's not- it's not debunking
especially as,
anything.
especially as a self-admitted,
that
very
ev-
stupid man.
Yes.
Every single
Who went bankrupt already at this point.
documentary is real.
Yup.
All right. have literally nothing to lose. To tell you.
Why lie?
Actually, you have a lot to lose.
Like, I literally have nothing at all to lose.
Well, that's incorrect, actually.
That's wrong.
I can tell you if it was real. I'm telling you right
No.
now.
No, you
How
don't.
am I
my
supposed to
God.
believe that?
You
That is
lied
fucking
for
rich.
7 years.
That is fucking rich. Let
Holy
me hear that one more
fuck.
time. Let's hear this from the guy that has admitted to lying for 7.5 years to his biggest fans, has
This is-
admitted to doing things that he has lied about for so many years now. Let me hear this again, Philip. Let me hear it.
Self-destruction.
I can tell you
At
if it was
all.
real.
I would tell you if it was real.
So
I would
he-
tell you if it was real.
Phil is saying that this is all just a coincidence, I guess, right?
Sure,
And
yeah.
Auntie, I've sent you something to sort of disprove the sort of the whole existence of coincidences.
Ooh, I wanna
Okay.
see.
Okay.
I
Gotcha.
wanna
Just
see.
Here we go.
Okay, here we go.
There is no such thing as a coincidence. The fact that you're watching this video means you are energetically aligned with me and this message.
Oh God!
Your thoughts create your reality. But you already knew that.
I don't
Yet,
like it.
you still live a life that you dread.
Excuse me.
That is because when you visualize your dream life, you unconsciously believe.
Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are set to go head-to-head in what's sure to be a savage debate on September 10th, broadcast on the ABC. But as is commonplace with Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, the debate lead-up has been marred by controversy. Sky News All-Stars Megyn Kelly, Nigel Farage and Kristen Tate take a deep dive into the debate drama and foreshadow who will come out on top.
I'm so pleased with the show that he chooses to appear on each and every week because, mate, Kamala Harris, so apparently if she's going to do an interview before the end of the month, she's going to have, as Megyn Kelly says, her emotional support governor with her. But more importantly, this whole thing about the debates, all right? I get the distraction because the real thing is 3 years since the horror of Afghanistan. But she wants notes. Like, honestly, this is a person who, for a whole week, last week, was the second coming and was so smart and so brave and so strong. Then why does she need notes at a debate and a minder in an interview?
Well, truth is, of course, as soon as she's off script, on subjects like economics, she just flaps and flounders around because she clearly hasn't got a blooming clue. Now, the rules of these debates were, of course, between Biden and Trump. All the Trump team are saying is the same rules should apply. And I think in America, in Britain and elsewhere, I see too many of these big political programs where leading figures are allowed to go in with a big crib sheet, thick of notes, turn to the subject and read it out. I think broadcasters need to be much, much tougher on our leaders. Have a pencil and blank sheet of paper, by all means, but Team Trump are absolutely right to say no notes.
Sky News US analyst Michael Ware agreed, saying the Harris camp are trying to catch Trump out with hot mics, which the Trump camp are not allowing.
Let's not forget that one of the sticking points getting us to this debate were the rules, and particularly about open mic night, if I can put it like that. We saw in the previous debate with then candidate President Biden, you know, the other speaker's mic was muted when the other candidate was speaking. Now, on this one, Vice President Harris really wanted President Trump to be unmuted. She wanted him to be set loose. But the word is that his campaign, rather than President Trump himself, really insisted on having President Trump muted on his mic.
Farage then went on to slam Harris for her lack of visibility throughout the campaign, due in large part to her reliance on an auto cue, which will be a challenge for her in this upcoming debate.
When they can't put her out there. Now, it's not because they're trying to be scarce with her. You can't be scarce in an election. I mean, you were able to get millions of votes because you were everywhere. You can't hide, can you, mate?
No, I mean, Biden got away with it in 2020 because of the pandemic. They sort of locked him in his bunker in Delaware and used the pandemic as cover. No, I mean, look, she has not given a single major press conference, a single major television or radio interview. She gets up on stage, she reads off an auto cue, and as soon as she goes off that, she is literally clueless. And so the point about not having notes is you're testing mental acuity, yes, but you're also testing instinct. You know, a question may come up that you hadn't necessarily thought would. It's how do you instinctively deal with that? And so often with politicians like Kamala Harris, one senses there isn't that much instinct there. The job is all about reaching, title, position, rank, respectability. It's more about that than what the person actually believes in. So this debate on the 10th of September, it is crucial. We need to see these two people head to head. And I'm sure, after negotiations, I'm sure it will happen.
Donald Trump doubled down on this, slamming Kamala Harris for asking to have a desk and notes for the upcoming debate.
He kept looking down, up. Nobody wants to cover it. I know all about notes. I mean, it's all right if people know that, but she wasn't supposed to have notes. So she's asked a question, she looks down, she had notes. That means she knew that what was happening.
Did her campaign, when they said that they wanted to change the rules that they had agreed to, did they ask for notes? Did they ask for the...
They wanted notes.
They wanted to be seated, and they wanted your mic hot.
And they wanted a desk. They didn't want to do it. I said, you got to do a stand-up.
After they already agreed to the other.
Yeah, but they wanted a desk from the beginning. You know who else wanted a desk? Sleepy Joe. He wanted a desk.
All right.
Trump's VP, J.D. Vance, backed up his boss, saying Kamala Harris knows that she will lose the debate unless she has a bias set up.
Over the last few weeks, Kamala Harris has been trying to change the rules on the debate. She wants to change everything because she knows that unless she gets the rules that she wants, unless she has a bias set up, the American people are going to reject her. But you know what she really wants to do? And look out for this on September the 10th. She really wants a moment where she can interrupt Donald Trump and say, I'm speaking. Because, Kamala Harris, sometimes I think she doesn't want to be the vice president. She wants to be the vice principal. She really likes to just tell people what to do, and she really wants that moment where she says, I'm speaking, right? And that's exactly what she'll watch for it on September the 10th, and then you can come back and say you heard it here first, that Kamala Harris, what I'd like her to actually do again is just explain her record, because I think the American people deserve to have a president who explains their record and doesn't run from it.
And Trump added, Harris has an advantage, claiming her best friend is the head of the ABC.
Her best friend is the head of the network. I've already heard they're going to get the questions in advance.
The former president making unfounded claims that Harris will have an unfair advantage.
You might give her the questions and give her the answers with the questions. I'm not sure it's going to help her.
Sky News All-Star Megyn Kelly slammed Kamala Harris for her absurd requests in the lead up to the debate, saying the test is easier if it's open book.
Our favourite time of the week.
Good evening and welcome to a program devoted entirely to lefties losing it. Now, before we get to the latest tomfoolery from Kamala Harris, let's start with a blast from the past. This clip of Trump derangement syndrome perfectly illustrates the concept of instant karma.
He lost. He lost.
It's unfortunate that it happened, but man, that is. Oh, and now you got the cops here. Oh man. Yeah, he spit on the guy. I know. He stepped on it. I was the one paying attention. You know what I mean? you got all that.
I did. You did? Can you send it to him?
That was terrific fun from a few years ago, and of course he was wearing a mask alone in the car. He probably still is. Now, right now we've got white dudes for Kamala, white women for Kamala. The Democrats are just loving going back to their segregationist roots, and now we have Swifties for Kamala, and yes, get ready to cringe.
Players gonna play, 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 play. Haters gonna hate, 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 hate. Baby, I'm just gonna shake, 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 shake. I shake it off. Shake it off.
Oh dear, and this young lady has an important message and she delivers it in a powerful fashion. Very droll work indeed there. Now to MSNBC, whose lefty losing it hosts find new and inventive ways to embarrass themselves. They really are a gift to this segment. Here is Ari Melba accusing Donald Trump's campaign advisor, Corey Lewandowski, of defamation, threatening legal action. Now, Ari claims he never said the bandage on Trump's ear was a spectacle, you know, the bandage on the ear that was hit with a bullet in an assassination attempt. Ari claims he never said it was a spectacle, except he kind of did. He starts off here claiming Fox News ran a false piece, but they didn't.
Fox News, which has been caught in defamation, ran a false piece, falsely stating that I said something else that I didn't say. So I stand on that. I stand on the New York Times
So you
quote.
didn't say this bandage was a proper spectacle from a candidate who was obsessed with spectacles.
That's fair. A placard for delegates to fill in, an image for political mobilization, a spectacle for this candidate who we know is, by his own admission, obsessed with assorted spectacles. He's on Mr. Lewandowski. I did not say that. That is a false quote.
Right here.
And
it's clear.
What you have is a false quote. What you have is a false quote. And if you, I'm putting you on notice, if you continue to repeat falsely that I said that, you will be potentially in a defamation situation because I didn't say that. But I understand that you're working off the internet, which is a lot of false information.
This is what it
I
says
wish you
right
luck
here.
with that. And Corey Lewandowski, we gave you time. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for joining me.
Dude, it's all on tape. Fancy threatening defamation action as on live TV when you've said it. Oh, dear me. I know MSNBC viewers are low information nincompoops, but the rest of us have eyes and ears. Now, President Joe Biden managed to tear himself away from the beach for a few hours, and he was asked about the media-created scandal about Donald Trump posing for photos and filming with Gold Star families at Arlington National Cemetery. This was his barely coherent response.
What do you think of President Trump's behavior at Arlington Cemetery with the visit to the fallen soldiers?
Did you watch your vice president's interview on CNN?
He said, I don't want to answer because I might tell you what I think. That's what he said. The nerve of this man. This is the puppet president who has abandoned these Gold Star families who lost their loved ones in his botched withdrawal of Afghanistan. Trump has been there for them since the start. He's the only one who showed up at Arlington National Cemetery to mark the 3-year anniversary of their deaths. And that saw a deranged, orchestrated media attack suggesting he is breaking protocol and politicising Arlington. A media attack involving all the usual suspects from New York Times to Washington Post and, of course, MSNBC. This is as dirty and rotten as lefties losing it gets, folks.
The death of some American service members in Afghanistan as part of the evacuation effort there 3 years ago. They're trying to make that a major problem for the Biden-Harris administration in the context of this campaign. But I know a lot of military veterans were very uncomfortable with the idea that Trump was there at all, and that, you know, he even at one point posed for a photograph with family members with a big smile and thumbs up on their face. Now, we should note some of the family members were doing the same, but that's their right. Donald Trump, it's seemingly very strange that he would do the same.
And I looked at the same pictures that you're alluding to now and describing at Arlington, taken with the former president, and the thought rolled immediately through my mind, is nothing sacred.
Now, it wasn't long before Kamala Harris joined these attacks. She joined the ugly pylon that in effect was also attacking the Gold Star families. The media and the Democrats don't care who they hurt in their desperate attempts to smear Trump. And that saw these Gold Star families, one after another, come out to defend President Trump, calling out the fake news, the deliberate disinformation that the media is engaging in, and calling out Kamala Harris too for her lies.
I got to stop what I'm doing, spending time with what's left of my family, to address a heinous, vile, and disgusting post put out by Kamala Harris. Why did we want Trump there? It wasn't to help his political campaign. We wanted a leader. That explains why you and Joe didn't get a call. Imagine for a second that your kid is killed, and there's a president of the United States willing to take you under his wing and listen to you. That's what we found in President Trump. Certainly not you, and certainly not Joe Biden. You have 13 families who have been waiting over 3 years to so much as get a phone call.
That was Mark Schmitz, Gold Star father of Lance Corporal Jared M. Schmitz. And as I said, he was one of many Gold Star families who took Kamala Harris and the media propagandists to task for the ugly narrative they are running.
Kamala, your statement is nothing more than a political spin to help you look better in your presidential campaign against Donald Trump. Our kids were murdered because of your administration. And you are partly to blame for that as well. Because in over 3 years, we have gotten nothing but more and more lies. Just like your statement, more and more spun lies and cover-ups to make you and your administration look good. But there is one thing that you said in your statement that was true. No one should be running for president if they cannot honor military members, their families, as well as veterans. So I guess that means that you should step down, Kamala.
That was Jocelyn Schmitz, Gold Star mother of Lance Corporal Jared Schmitz, who died in that botched withdrawal. These kids, their children, died because of the botched operation under the Biden-Harris administration. Then they were ignored, and now they're being attacked because Trump is by their side. I've said it before, and I'll keep saying it. You don't hate the leftist media enough. Kamala's VP picked.
The arrest of Colin Gray comes after the Fox 5 I-team poured through public records today, trying to learn more about this father and his son.
Late today, the I-team obtained a recording of a sheriff's office interview of both Grays. Recorded after the FBI received a tip last year about a threat to shoot up a school.
That's it, yeah. Do you have weapons in the house? I do. Are they accessible to him?
They are. I mean, there's nothing loaded, but they are now. We do a lot of shooting. We do a lot of deer hunting. He shot his first deer this year. Like, I don't know. I don't know anything about him saying like that, and I'm gonna be mad as hell if he did. And then all the guns will go away, and they won't be accessible to him. You know, I'm trying to be honest with you. I'm trying to teach him about firearms and safety and how to do it all, and get him interested in the outdoors.
Now, that's just a portion of the Jackson County Sheriff's Office interview.
Fox 5 I-team reporter Johnny Edwards says it's part of an emerging picture of a troubled family and some missed warning signs.
From what we're looking at.
I'm excited. What's up, Johnstown, Pennsylvania? You guys, I'm here with our favorite president. I asked my daughter this morning, what should mommy speak about today? And she answered me so quickly. She goes, Mom, speak about women. I can do that because unlike some people in America, I can define what a woman is. As every mom knows, we have the toughest job in the world as mothers. We do. America, do not get distracted by attributes, because it's her policies that are gonna matter. Now, I could stand here and I could talk about them, but I don't use them because I don't need to. This is not a game. We've got to get President Trump back in that White House on November 5th, and we will do it. USA. God, what a good crowd. Patriots. Patriots. Kamala Harris had a chance to be a role model for young girls and women across America to show us what real leadership looks like. Instead, she has shown me and the rest of America what a puppet has looked like for a failing administration. She is not the best that we can do, America. She has been there for 3.5 years, and we as America deserve better than this. Let's talk about our border, or for what I would call lack of a border, because while Kamala sits comfortably in her ivory tower, our borders remain a serious American danger zone. Women and children are trafficked.
I absolutely hate covering these stories. I hate seeing them in the news. I hate knowing that these things happen in the world. And I almost didn't want to cover it on the show because it's very unlike a lot of the things that we cover, and very little information has come out. And usually in these cases with school shootings, that's what we're talking about. I'm sure that you saw from the title and the thumbnail. Usually as information is coming out, I don't want to talk about it. I especially do not want to give attention to the shooter, because usually that's what they're trying to achieve by doing these absolutely heinous acts. But there are so many questions about
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Nerd Nest. Today I've got some surprising news for you. Valve just made a very unexpected move when they acquired Hapu Games, an indie studio known for their roguelike action games. But I'm also going to dive into the shockingly short life of Sony's multiplayer shooter Concord, and how Microsoft is fighting back against Valve, trying to make their operating system just a little more controller friendly. But first, I want to thank our sponsor, HubSpot. This is the OBSBot Meet 2. It is the smallest 4K webcam that I have ever seen in my life. Here it is compared to just the lens of my usual camera. Tiny, right? It supports 4K at 30 frames per second, or you can go 1080p and get up to 60 frames per second. When I opened up the package and took this out, I have to admit that I was skeptical that it would produce a good picture, but I'm here to tell you it absolutely does. That's thanks to its half-inch sensor, and I have to say, I did not expect this. Valve just acquired Hapu Games, and if you don't know who they are, they're an indie studio known for creating... That's pathetic. Microsoft continues to take baby steps in making its operating system more controller-friendly, and the latest beta of Windows 11 does just that, as reported by Tom Warren over at The Verge. Here's what he said. Windows 11 is getting a new gamepad keyboard that lets you type with an Xbox controller. It's now in beta testing, and it looks like it could be a really good addition for Windows handhelds. Now for me, every single time I've used a Windows device for anything, I've always needed to use a keyboard. Yes, they have touchscreen keyboards, which will help in a pinch. but if you're doing anything other than just a few words, it is a huge pain in the ass to use. If you combine that with the fact that docking these devices to a TV is great right up until you need to enter any text or interact with pop-up windows, it just makes not being at a desk kind of a nightmare. Well, Microsoft is finally updating Windows so you can have a more controller-friendly UI, and here's what they said over at The Verge. The gamepad keyboard is now in testing as part of the beta channel on Windows 11 and even includes a button accelerator so you can use the X button for backspace, the Y button for spacebar, and the menu button on the Xbox controller to hit enter when you're done typing. These keyboard keys have also been vertically aligned so it's easier to type with a controller, which is awesome. This actually makes it a better keyboard or a better default keyboard than the one that I use on my ROG Ally with Bazzite, as those keys are not vertically aligned, which makes typing with a controller really confusing. I'm never really sure where the selector is going to go when I use the D-pad to move it. It's a frustrating thing, but it's not a big deal, and I'm glad that Microsoft is fixing it, and I hope to see more things that they can change down the road. But this isn't the first time that they've done that. But even if this is a good change overall, it doesn't mean I'm going to be ditching Bazzite on my ROG Ally X or installing Windows on my Steam Deck, because when you're using Windows, you still can't log into Windows without touching the screen at some point. And as of this beta, when you tap on text fields, it doesn't bring up the new keyboard, it brings up the old one still. That said, I do think that this is a move in the right direction, and Microsoft has been speeding up the pace at which they make Windows more usable on a controller, or more controller friendly. They recently made Windows Game Bar more controller friendly.
Don't look that much farther back, because I did do several race-based shows.
No.
Okay, so this is unfortunately 3 years
Hello,
ago.
Jew.
Do you think that counts as, let's hear what he says again, real quick. I want to hear this.
Is because it's literally the only example you could have of something like that in like many years.
Okay, well, he said many years kind of emphatically there. I just want to play this one for you real quick.
okay.
I apologize, guys.
Yeah.
This is from 2020, 2021. 2021.
That's the year before this.
Oh,
Yeah, here we go.
okay.
He walks his daughter
There's not
to
many.
school. This is actually a nice story.
What?
And the soundtrack's outstanding. La la la.
La la la.
La la la.
La la.
La
Look
la
out, there's
la.
a black woman coming. Ah!
Yeah, the interview was last year, by the way, so that means this was only 2 years ago at the time he said that. So.
Oh my god.
Well, if you think that's
That's
racist,
bad.
you're a troll.
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay. I'm a troll.
If you heard him say a black woman coming, you are racist. I will agree with that. If you noticed,
That's a
if
good
you
point.
heard him say black woman, got it.
Is because it's literally the only example you could have of something like that in like many years. But it's the one my detractors sent to Craig and said, you gotta get you a gotcha moment in the interview with this moment.
Are we really
Even
doing?
though-
Okay, again, we are blaming detractors for sending things
that.
I said to
Right.
people that they would have known
No,
if detractors didn't send it to them. I got one
It's
thing
not
to
my
say.
fault.
Yeah, it's not my fault.
Left rejoices in orgiastic insanity at the idea that they can once again complain in advance that Russia is interfering to lay the groundwork for that if Donald Trump wins, it's as the result of this Russian interference, and people jump on the guilty until proven innocent bandwagon. If you haven't heard what's going on, it's a little complicated. Let's go to the indictment. United States District Court, Southern District of New York, otherwise known as SDNY, otherwise known as the most corrupt district in all of America, United States of America, versus Konstantin Kalishnikov and Elena Afanasieva, defendants. And just a heads up, if it looks like I'm glistening a little bit on the forehead, it's because I just got back from my jog and I haven't stopped sweating yet. But yeah, this is a story about two alleged RT employees financing a company that is thinly veiled in this indictment. Everybody knows exactly who the players are. Some of the players who are only named as commentator 1 and 2 have taken to Twitter to disavow what went on and make sure that it is known to the world that they had no knowledge of what was going on or what was alleged to have been going on as per the allegations in this indictment. And I'm not naming any names to disclose anything remotely confidential. It's been all over the news all day. The names of the right-wing commentators at issue: Benny Johnson, Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, and the name of the right-wing commentator whose company is at issue is Lauren Chen and her husband, and the company is Tenet Media. They did such a bad job concealing or attempting to conceal that their attempt to conceal doesn't look like an attempt at all. They did such a bad job attempting to conceal the names in this indictment. I think it's obviously clearly done to sow discord barely 60 days out of the November 2024 election. Now, we will go through some of the most relevant allegations of the indictment, at least as far as I am concerned, but the 30,000-foot overview summary of this indictment is that you have two Russian principals who are allegedly employees of RT, financing the operations of a Tennessee incorporated company, that being Tenet Media, via Lauren Chen. Lauren Chen, who wants Tenet Media to be something of a right-wing commentary empire of sorts. I might be overselling it, but a source for right-wing political commentary goes and recruits big right-wing commentators, names like Dave Rubin, Benny Johnson, and Tim Pool, and they are paid via the monies that are financed through this company by an individual who actually doesn't exist, or allegedly doesn't exist, a persona named something Gregorian, that the two RT employees are responsible for having set up, and Lauren Chen is either a part of this or woefully blind as to where the finances are coming from. That's the 30,000-foot overview, but the one key allegation, which comes right at the introduction of this indictment, is that despite this being allegedly some form of Russian involvement to interfere with the 2024 American elections, there's no uniformity of the messaging that Russia is allegedly trying to infuse into American politics. I'll read you the allegation. Introduction. RT, formerly known as Russia Today, is a state-controlled media outlet funded and directed by the government of Russia. After Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022, RT was sanctioned, dropped by distributors, and ultimately forced to cease formal operations in the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, and the European Union. In response, RT created, in the words of its editor-in-chief, unquote, entire empire of covert projects, end quote, designed to shape public opinion in, quote, Western audiences, end quote. One of RT's, quote, covert projects, end quote, as described herein, is its funding and direction of a Tennessee-based online content creation company, US Company One. Over at least the past year, RT and its employees, including Konstantin Kalishnikov, aka, quote, Kostia, end quote, and Elena Afasinyeva, aka, quote, Lena, end quote, the defendants, have deployed nearly $10 million laundered through a network of foreign shell entities to covertly fund and direct US Company One. US Company One publishes English language videos on multiple social media channels, including TikTok, Instagram, X, and YouTube. Using multiple fake personas, Afasinyeva edited, posted, and directed the posting by US Company One of hundreds of videos. Many of the videos published by US Company One contain commentary on events and issues in the United States, such as immigration, inflation, and other topics related to domestic and foreign policy. While the views expressed in the videos are not uniform, the subject matter and content of the videos are often consistent with the government of Russia's interest in amplifying US domestic division in order to weaken US opposition to core government of Russia interests, such as its ongoing war in Ukraine. The ongoing war in Ukraine and the opposition to the ongoing war in Ukraine, or at least to the West financing it forever to our last tax dollar, seems to be the leitmotif of this indictment. It comes up over and over again, as if to say the main purpose of this indictment is actually to shut people up in opposing the endless financing of the war in Ukraine. But the amazing thing of this indictment is that it alleges Russia is interfering in American politics, although there is no uniformity in the messaging on this right-wing platform. That is to say, basically, that the commentators have carte blanche and intellectual freedom to commentate the way they so choose, and to me that seems like a very bad way to interfere in foreign politics. The indictment then goes on to say the big bad boogeyman words over and over again. Russia, Russia, Russia. Anybody that has anything to do with Russia in any way, shape, or form has to be a traitor to America and has to be engaged in election interference. Paragraph 27, despite describing U.S. Companies One Investor 2, Commentator 1, and Commentator 2 as, quote, Edward Gregorian, end quote, a purported finance professional in Western Europe, Founder 1 and Founder 2 admitted to each other in their private communications that their, quote, investors, end quote, were in truth and in fact the, quote, Russians, end quote. The same term that Founder 1 and Founder 2 previously used while working directly under contract with RT as described above. On or about May 27, 2023, Founder 1 messaged Founder 2 on Discord, quote, I'm going to ask the Russians about hiring Producer 2 this coming week, end quote. Approximately 2 days later, Founder 1 messaged Producer 2 on Discord, quote, here's a list of responsibilities I sent over to the investors to approve bringing you on, waiting to hear back on timeline, salary, end quote. On or about August 8, 2023, Persona 1 informed Founder 1 and Founder 2 in Discord that the request to hire a, quote, producer booker, end quote, was, quote, approved. Russia, Russia, Russia. Apparently Founder 1 was at one point in time working with or contracting with RT, and now they're doing business with the Russians, which means that all of this has to be totally shady business. In reality, one typically should know where their financing is coming from, and there are going to be questions as to what the investment was for. To the extent that the financiers, real or not, were investing $10 million in this Tennessee-based company, presumably they were going to want a return on their investment, so it will be key to see what the details of that arrangement were. It could very well be that Founder 1 and Founder 2 just thought they were doing business with legitimate investors. We will see. This is, after all, only an indictment from a corrupt Department of Justice 60 days out from the 2024 election, a day after it was revealed that Kathy Hochul had a Chinese spy infiltrating her government in New York. Rhyming so much with 2016, it could be accused of plagiarism. But yeah, with all that said, we should read this with the grain of salt that it deserves, and also the skeptical eye that is required when approaching things with intellectual honesty. Paragraph 31. As US Company 1 prepared to launch in the fall of 2023, consisted with Persona 1's instruction to Founder 1 to work with the, quote, Russian firm we agreed to hire, end quote, Founder 1 introduced
Oh!
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
That's it.
I'm sorry, was that an inappropriate response?
Not at all. What he said. She said. It. What are you, robot?
I'm a robot. I don't have an assigned gender.
Good for you.
Wait, so how do we make s'mores?
You put a marshmallow on a stick. Where the
And now a word from our sponsor.
Raycon coming in and sponsoring the channel with their everyday earbuds. Priced to please, with the same groundbreaking and long overdue. For the rest of us, not drinking the Kool-Aid, waiting for the alien ship to whisk our souls away from behind the comic. This game was DOA. The announcement trailer was like a wet fart, hovering over your nose and giving you a bad case of pink eye. The reception for it was also not glowing.
Dustbin, the game. Out of all games coming in 2024, this is one of them. Did Tumblr make a video game somehow? Bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it plays out for him.
Even before the game came out, gaming journalism did their thing, where they were oddly positive about what honestly seemed like hot, wet garbage on a warm summer's day.
Dustborn let me smash fascists and flirt with my situationship on the road trip of...
What? On...
What can I help you with?